Hello class, I'm Bob Salvatore, Makeup Director for Max Factor, and this is Ronnie. And together Ronnie and I are going to try to give you an insight into something that I do every day that hopefully will be helpful to you. Now before we begin the film, I certainly want to point out to you that nothing that we do or say today is in any way meant to disprove or to change the way you're taught to do things in the school. This is simply my way of doing things, and it's worked for me. You, as you grow in the beauty industry, will find your own ways of doing things. So please, when you watch it, observe with an open mind and knowing that this is just my particular way to do it. And if you get some helpful hints from it, or it makes things easier for you, then we've succeeded in what we've started out to do in this film. Any makeup that you do certainly begins with a properly treated skin, and I'm not going to dwell a great deal on the particular treatment products that we use, because as you get out into the industry, you'll choose products that perhaps are representative of a company that you work with, or perhaps you'll form your own likes and dislikes. Needless to say, the products I'm going to use are by Max Factor. Starting with a cleanser. This particular cleanser is a liquid type and would be used as such. I'm pouring the size of about a quarter in the palm of my hand, and starting at the chin, this is applied in a circular motion. The advantage of doing this is that you're giving the client an isometric exercise as well as cleansing her face. It's best to start at the chin and work your way up. Come over the nose and under the eye on the opposite side. The greatest problem with this type of cleanser is that people use too much. So you might point out to whomever you're using it on that a lesser amount is more effective than a great deal, and it's easier for you to get the job done more effectively. So in these little circular motions using this pattern, this is worked all around the face, up into the hairline, and underneath the chin. Then taking a tissue, fold it in a triangle in this manner, and then wrap it around your hand like a baby diaper, and fold this end this way. And there again, starting at the same point where you began to apply it, tissue it off. Now, at no time should you distort the customer so that if you were doing this in a department store, she'd look strange if someone walked by. So try not to shove the Kleenex up her nose or do something unflattering. All of your movements, as well as being effective, should be fairly pleasing to the eye and certainly pleasing to the person you're doing it to. Avoid little puttering motions. It's like a barber who keeps cutting one hair. Your impulse is to run out of the barber shop. So don't dwell in one spot. Keep moving. Try to use nice sweeping motions. It should not take more than a few seconds to apply the cleanser and to remove it. If you want to be economical, you can reverse the tissue and use it this way. Now, you'll never be able to remove all cleanser with the tissue, which is the reason why you point out that everyone would use a toner. The basic function of a toner is to remove the remainder of the cleanser as well as to tone the skin. A small amount could be placed on a tissue or a cotton, and then with large sweeping strokes again, remove all of the cleanser from the face. Make sure that you don't leave cleanser in the eye area, because then when you try to apply your eye makeup, you're going to find that it's going to smear because you didn't get it all out of there. Now, Ronnie's been cleansed and toned. These are very basic steps and would apply to everybody whether they had oily or dry skin. The type of cleanser and toner you used would be contingent on the skin type, but you would use both steps on every person. Your third step is moisturizer. There again, the greatest sin against moisturizer is using too much. It is not necessarily the old adage that if a little is good, more is enough. More, as a matter of fact, is less advantageous than a lesser amount. Here again, use large sweeping strokes. Don't overuse the product and try to get in all the little crevices. I don't apply moisturizer in this area because I find it interferes with makeup, and later on when we get into the eye makeup, I'll show you a product that has enough moisturizer in it for that area. If you think you've used too much moisturizer, just blot the face with a tissue. Most makeups today have plenty of moisture in, so there's no need to overcompensate underneath. The two areas that most people forget about that are problematic to most women, now maybe not in Ronnie's case because she's a young girl, but anybody 25 or 30 should begin being concerned with the area under the eye, which is dry on everyone, and the throat. And this is called eye cream, and nearly every company does have one. It's applied at the outer corner of the eye working in, starting at the outside corner where the little tiny lines accumulate. This certainly doesn't prevent lines, but it helps soften premature lines and keeps this area in better condition as women get older. So it's used in this area. It's especially advantageous if you're going to go out in the sun or for women who squint or use their eyes a great deal. After you've applied eye cream, you could apply throat cream. Now, all throat creams are applied differently. This particular throat cream is applied using a small amount on each side of the neck, and then crisscrossing the throat cream. I'll have Ronnie do it herself. If you put your hand there and go from here to your other ear, and then take the other hand and go the other way. Now keep doing that. By crisscrossing that, you sort of lock all the little muscles and tendons this way, so it keeps the neck firmer. Now that may not be is important when you're younger, but as you get older, it does prevent the neck from having a very aged look. Sometimes women's faces are in good condition, but their neck is a giveaway, so it's because they ignore this area. So this is crisscross. Other companies may tell you to do this. You could sit and do this, and that would give you skinny fingers, but it wouldn't do much for your neck. This is a liquid foundation, and this particular one is pH balanced, meaning that it does not have a great deal of oil. The type of makeup that you choose for the client depends solely on the kind of coverage she wants and the skin type. Liquids are the most natural, and some of the creams are a bit heavier and so on, but that would be absolutely something you would discuss with the client, and the decision would be made because of the personality or the skin type or so many other things. But a light liquid is the best if you're not sure. This is a beigey tone, which is usually on a younger girl the best way to go, since pinks are a bit aging and usually too artificial looking. And now the intent of this, even though Ronnie has beautiful skin, would be to even make it more flawless. A lot of young people, especially today, feel there's no need for makeup, but makeup is a protective barrier against the elements. So certainly everybody should wear a small amount, if for no other reason than to protect their skin. It's a fallacy that if you wear little or no makeup, you'll have healthier skin. Now, if the color is chosen correctly, there certainly shouldn't be any need to blend it more than under the jawline. If you find you have to continue and go further, it's because the makeup is either too dark or too light, and usually too dark. And while the makeup is fresh, at this point, you would do any contouring you intend to do. If we analyze Ronnie's face, which does not have a great many flaws, if any, there wouldn't be a great deal of compensating to do. For the interest of this film, we'll do some basic contouring to help you. Nearly every woman is conscious of cheekbones and wants high cheekbones. If that were the case, you would take a product that's in a medium brown family, not too red or not too brown, and apply it here. Now, it could be a lot of substances. This happens to be a sort of a warm brown cream, and it's applied there. And then with your fingertip, your thumb, almost as if you were working with clay, you can massage this without moving it around too much. Otherwise, you move right out of the area you're trying to contour in. And that would give a dent underneath this hard piece of bone and give it the appearance, this of sticking out and this of receding. So it's in this little hollow just under the bone. If you feel the hard bone on each person you're working on and then slip off it into the softer area, you'll find you're in the right place, which would vary with everyone you were working on. Now, if the customer had a small chin, you would highlight it. If she had a big chin, you would darken the chin. Now, Ronnie's chin certainly doesn't have any problems, but if we were assuming that it was more large than small, we would darken this part to tend to fade it away and then blend it underneath here. If it was an older woman with a double chin, you'd apply the darkness here to give it an indented look. If she had a very wide forehead, you could put it here and here. We could narrow down the nose by using some on each side. And we could shorten the nose by taking the tip off this way and blending it under. So whatever you leave as a highlight would tend to make the nose look in that proportion. Now, just as you've contoured the things that you want to diminish, you could certainly highlight the things that you want to stand out. So in this case, we could bring out the cheekbone and lighten under the eye by using the highlight cream in this area. Now, this will make the bone appear to stick out and the dent underneath to recede. Because Ronnie is narrow here, we could use the highlighter in this area to give this a wider effect. There again, if the opposite were true and she had a large forehead, we would have darkened up here. After all of your contouring is exactly the way you want it, set the entire face with loose powder. A translucent powder I find is the best, since you don't have to worry about a color buildup, and it can be used on any skin type. Loose powder is still an essential part of any good makeup. Now, you're finding that a lot of people today try to delete it, but you cannot have a flawless looking skin or a makeup that lasts through an entire evening without setting it with loose powder. Now, the particular eye makeup that we're going to do is going to be current, and it may last for another 6 months or a year. So certainly bear in mind that what we're doing is right now, and I think it'll hold up through the coming season. We may laugh at this film 15 years from now or even 5 years from now when this eye makeup passes out of vogue. So until it's dated, the eye makeup that you're going to see is right now, it is what the fashionable woman would wear, and I assure you it'll last at least another year. It could be described best in a word which would be smoky. There are no definite lines. All the lines are either blended or muted, but you will not see any one line anywhere in the eye makeup. Before you begin this look, you always have to find something to blank out any redness or this little look of veins along the lid. So we're going to use the same thing we highlighted Ronnie's face with. It's called Shadow Base, and it's a yellow, creamy liquid, and it's applied in this area. And then with a fingertip, pat it and blend it until you have enough just to disguise any discoloration in this area, hide any little veins, and give you a very fresh, clear look. White tends to be a little bit too artificial and tends to destroy some of the color. The yellow, when it's blended, just lightens human flesh to the greatest degree without looking unusual. Now that does not look yellow, but it just looks light. And you can see the difference in the two eyes, that it's covered all of the discoloration. So it's like starting an eye makeup with a perfectly clean canvas. Do not rub this substance. Try to get into a patting motion, and you do that with most everything that you do with the makeup. Now that's the only cream probably that we'll use. The rest of the eye makeup are powders, but because the powder is sticking to the cream, you're going to get a very smooth surface. This is the first product that we're going to use on Ronnie's eye, and it's best described as a peach color. It could be a beige or a buff or a bisque or a peach as I'm using, but it has to be in a neutral family, something between an oyster and a peach. Try to use beveled brushes that are slanted, as this one is, and then using that slanted edge of the brush, look down a little bit, tap this against the lid. If the woman has a very small lid, then try to come up as high as you can to give her the effect of big lids. In Ronnie's case, where she has a good sized lid, we're just going to cover the entire lid, but not cheat either way. Be sure to go down in this corner, because this is where most people are dark and it forms a shadow. And as we finish the eye makeup, you're going to notice that the only lightness that you're ever going to see is going to be in this area. The rest will all be dark. So that be sure you take your time to get a very neat effect from the inner part of the eye near the nose at least to the middle of the lid. You're going to do it all, but especially concentrate on the neatness of this part. Starting in the inner corner, tap this until you see a nice light effect in the corner of the eye. Don't skid the brush across, because then you get a big accumulation of eyeshadow on your earlobe and nothing on your eye. And you don't need brushes for every particular product, but certainly you'll need a brush for your light products and a brush for your darker ones, because you can't switch to a dark shadow with this brush and then ever come back to the light. Now after the lids are both done in this peach color, you move immediately to underneath the eyebrow. Now there again is a common mistake, that people leave this area till after they've done the darkness in the center and then do the light under the eyebrow. It should be the reverse, that you do the light here, and then you overlap both lights with a brown. So be sure that when you're using the peach or the neutral tone, immediately after you've done the eyelid, come up and do the area underneath the eyebrow on this bone. So now we have lightened her lid and lightened under the eyebrow on this bone on both eyes, and even though we didn't intentionally leave out the middle, if the two lights get together, that's not going to be such a disaster, but don't deliberately fill it all in. There should be a little gap in here where you didn't put anything. Now you're going to put a medium brown or a medium tone on this bone just above the crease in the lid. Now most people get this too low. Once you start to blend it, be sure to work it up a little bit higher into this area. Do not work low, because then you're going to make the client's eyes look small instead of large. Try not to use anything other than things in the brown family, or at most this kind of a plummy brown. Don't move out into vivid colors. The whole eye makeup should remain very muted. Keep blending until you have a perfectly smooth top area as well as bottom. Don't worry too much about the outside. Try to give it an uphill sweep, but later on you can soften that with a sponge or your fingertip. If this moves down on the lid more than you want, you can always go back with your lighter shadow and tap along the top edge to make sure you've still got enough lid. Now, eyeliner has passed out of vogue some time ago, but there still is a very dark, smoky look around the eye. You can buy an eye coloring pencil for this and use it in a little triangle form in the corner of the eye from here to here, like a slightly inverted V. I'll show you that you could do it even with a powder. This is a powdered eyeshadow in a very dark color. Now, one of the disadvantages of the look that's current now is that it's messy. So that you may find, now look down a little bit, that you have to go back and redo the makeup under the eye because you've gotten little particles that have fallen. If that happens, it's just one of the particular disadvantages of this look. So you just may have to do that. Good. Now down again. Now that's an inverted V done with a dark brown powder from here to here. So as you get to her eyeball, it doesn't cross that area. That could be done with eye coloring pencils as well. The sort of fat pencils that you see in the department stores now, in a very dark brown. I would avoid black. Or do it with a powder. The powder's a little messier and it takes a little more expertise to do it, but it can be done. Now Ronnie could go out in the daytime with just this small amount of dark brown powder in the corner of her eye. After I've added mascara, that would be one look and could be used in the daytime as a very tasteful eye makeup. The trend is to get a bit smokier in the evening, and so one of the advantages of the look of today is that you could work in the office this way, and by adding more of that brown powder in the evening, you would get the more dramatic look that's fashionable now. So there again, by holding a tissue in this area, now tip your head back a little bit and look down. Putting that same teak brown powder in this corner of the eye and then blending it in toward the nose. You would get a more smoky effect toward the outside. Now some of this should go under the eye as well, so that once you hit this corner, try to get a bit more under the eye so you have this smoky effect. Ronnie's eyebrows are already dark enough and well shaped so that after the eye makeup is getting to the point where you want it, it's good to get your perspective by brushing all of this hair up to give it a neat effect. And then only knock down a few to give it shape. This is a mascara that has an applicator to apply the mascara on one side and a brush on the other side to separate them with. So once the mascara is applied, this can be reinserted in the mascara, switch the brush around, and then separate the lashes. Now if you don't have this particular type of device, all you have to do is take an old mascara brush and wash it with soap and water and keep it handy to separate the lashes once you've used any other type of mascara. Look up toward the ceiling. Okay, here again is putting the dark powder in the corner of the eye and working it in toward the nose. Now, the biggest mistake with the new smoky look is people try to apply the dark here and go to the outside and find that it doesn't come out effective. It's because it's the only time we've ever really worked in reverse. And try to work this dark shadow, which is the darkest one you're going to use, up into the one that you had in the center, so that it forms a V there. So as I told you before, the only light part remaining is this first part of the lid on both sides. When applying your mascara, one of the only tips that I can pass on to you is don't push all of the lashes this way toward the ear. People have the illusion of having very exotic eyes with long lashes toward the outside, but they in fact look like dead soldiers all laying down. The ideal way to do that is to take the center ones and push them straight up and move these over toward the nose so that the eyelashes open up like a fan, and only push these this way so that you would have a straight up, over and over to pull them all apart. Do not swing them all that way. Only the outer ones. If you do want to introduce another color in your eye makeup, then you could take a smoky green or a smoky plum as we use today and work it into this corner, but don't use it on the lid and don't use it in the crease of the eye. Blend it into this outer portion to continue to smoke up the outside. So the effect that you should have today is toward everything growing darker as it goes out. Introduce your other color in this area if you're going to use any. Now before doing the lips, find something that's in a deep brown, a reddish brown, to line the lips with. And in Ronnie's case, her own lip line is ideal, so we don't have to compensate in any way. A good mouth has a slightly smaller and slightly more extended upper lip and a slightly thicker, shorter bottom lip. Now Ronnie's are almost equal, but that doesn't bother me so much, so we're going to leave it that way. The thing to watch for is that you never have a longer, thicker upper lip than lower lip. And that you don't want a lower lip that extends beyond the upper lip. Now the look of lips is still very transparent. Avoid iridescent or pearlescent lipstick. Your best bet is a cream lipstick with no iridescence in it, and to make it see-through, blend that with some lip gloss. This is a browny peach shade of Gem&S lipstick called Berry Bronze, and I'm going to mix it with lip gloss on the brush. Don't apply the lipstick and then put lip gloss over. Try to blend the two on your brush. Try to keep the mouth as transparent as you can. The objective of using the pencil on the outside is to keep this moist lipstick from creeping outside of her lip line. On a young girl, it's just effective and attractive. On an older woman, it actually serves a purpose in keeping the lipstick from crawling into those little vertical lines that seem to accumulate around the mouth. The younger the client, the browner the lip pencil should be. It's possible to use a lip lining pencil in a brown tone and only fill it in with lip gloss and no color. The mouth has a nice smooth look, and the mouth has a definition without the use of lipstick at all, and it's a good protective measure. But some color should be used on the mouth. It's much more popular, again, to have color on the mouth. It makes the teeth appear whiter, and it certainly gives a lot more interest to the face and to the eye makeup. As a finishing touch, we'll add some blusher, and it goes just above where we did the contouring, but not quite as high as where we did the highlighting, so that it would be in this area where you have highlighting above it and contouring below it. Can also be used in the temples and on the chin. I would avoid doing that if the client has a big chin or if she has too low a forehead. The blusher should never come in past the pupil of the eye, and it can work its way right into the hairline. Now there you have a fairly up-to-date or very up-to-date eye makeup, and hopefully you've picked up a few hints that will help you. And I certainly hope that you have half as much fun as I've had in the beauty industry. So good luck, and I hope you've enjoyed the makeup. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the film that we've just done, and I'd like to take a few minutes now to maybe pass on some of the experiences I've had that might be helpful to you. One is this particular chart. I've used this for the past 5 years, and I found it's been especially helpful to me. You must always assume that the customer, who after all is very apprehensive while you're making her up, is going to forget everything you've told her. And while it's second nature to you, it's all very foreign to her. So that bear in mind that you must never insult her intelligence, but on the other hand, it's very helpful if everything that you've told her and everything you pointed out about where blusher is applied and what shade of lipstick you've used on her, if simultaneously during the makeup you reach over and put it on a chart such as the one you see here, that woman will take the chart home with her and make every reference to it. I've seen the charts come back dog-eared years later, where women have made reference to what you pointed out to me 2 years ago or 4 years ago, and I've done it ever since. Is there something new? So that it's very important to assume that the customer knows nothing. And while you know everything and you're assuming she knows nothing, you must never instill that into her either. This is one of the charts that is undone. So as you can see, this inanimate piece of paper can certainly come to life. And what I've used on here is the actual products. Other than using pressed powder on the face to give it color, everything else on here is the exact same product I would have used on the customer. So where you saw these shades in the film used, that is what's used on this chart. Those 3 eyeshadows are actually applied with a Q-tip or with a brush. And the lipstick is actually applied to the lip, but I blended it with a Q-tip so it doesn't come off on the customer when she leaves. So graphics are very important. And I've chosen this one. You might even come up with a better one, but they are helpful to yourself and to the client. They give you a more professional appearance. Speaking of being professional, it's very important to handle products in a very professional way. Now, while you're in the school and while you're all working with one another and you've become friends, sometimes you lose sight of the fact that you're going to be out in the field, and the picture that you present and the way you perform has everything to do with whether you hold this job or not. That there are buyers who glide through department stores and constantly look at makeup people, the kind of appearance that they have, the way they handle products, and that has everything to do with whether you stay in the profession or not. So it would behoove you to move properly and to give a lot of consideration to the way you present products. Now, when you start out in the industry, you may very well be selling very inexpensive products, or you might not have reached the level that certainly you hope for. But you should treat those products, whether they're 50 cents or $50, in the same way. Now, this is a jar of eye cream. It makes a great deal of difference whether you unscrew this, throw the top down, and hand the product to the woman. She sticks her finger in it, and then you have a client in front of you with a finger full of eye cream. You've lost control of the situation, and she has nothing advantageous to look at except some cream on the end of her finger. The proper way to do that is, while you're talking and presenting this product and explaining the advantages of it, to slowly be opening the jar. Now, this will arouse great anticipation in the customer. She's dying to see what's in there, but you tease her a little bit. You just turn it and talk a little, until finally when you open it, she should be gasping to see what's in it. So that it makes a great deal of difference how you do that. This is uninteresting, and this is really going to turn her on. You're just turning it very slowly, and you're playing with her emotions. And finally, when you open it, you take the cap and you tuck it in the back of your hand so that the beauty of the cap shows. That's not to say to stick the liner out in her face. You turn it around and show the best part of it. So that's there and you're here. And you tip it. Now, if this is a good jar of cream, or this is a lipstick, I have seen great battles arise at the counter because someone took a brand new lipstick and smeared it all over their hand, and then the clerk accused the lady of using her brand new lipstick and not using a tester. So instead of a sale, you have a revolution. The professional way of doing that is to take out a brand new lipstick, which certainly looks more attractive than a tester, and turn it up and say, I think this is a perfect shade of lipstick for you. When the customer reaches for the lipstick, you slowly move it back and say, this is not a tester, but I'll certainly get you one. Then you get a tester, hand it to the lady, and she can smear it all over her body if she wants. She has the tester, and you have a brand new lipstick. All of these things have a great deal to do with the way you look and the respect the customer has for you. Also, when you should learn a product presentation. You should learn what it does, how it's used, and only use that in your presentation. Do not think that on a day when you're creative you'll make up things to do. Lady, this will grow hair on your head and it's good for your kidneys and it'll clear up hepatitis. The next day you're disinterested, you were out late, and you don't say anything. You should learn only what the product does and never take it upon yourself to say anything else. And if you do, you should be prepared to be slapped with an enormous lawsuit. You only say what the jar says. You say it helps disguise tiny lines around the eyes. That is not to say, madam, this will take away your wrinkles. You buy this cream, it's $17.50, you'll never see another wrinkle. You may see the inside of a jail and she'll have the same wrinkles. You say that this helps disguise tiny lines. Help disguise doesn't really say anything. It says help, and it says disguise. It doesn't say take away wrinkles. So be careful that you stick to the presentation you learn, you use it all the time, and you never deviate from it. You also never put down a competitive product. This is Geminus eye cream. It will help disguise tiny lines around your eye. That's wonderful. Is it better than Revlon? I use Revlon now. I don't know anything about Revlon's eye cream. I'm sure it's an excellent product, but I do know that this helps disguise tiny lines. Will it take away my wrinkles? Well, I don't know if it'll take away your wrinkles, but I do know it helps disguise tiny lines. You only know what you know, and you don't know anything else. You don't know about Revlon, and you don't know about Rubinstein. You just keep coming back to the same presentation. Now, you'll either annoy her to death or you'll sell it. But don't take it upon yourself to put down that this is much better than Revlon. That won't take away your wrinkles, and this will. You only know about the product you're selling. And if tomorrow you leave Max Factor and go to Revlon, then you do the same thing. You only know about Revlon, and you never heard about Max Factor, and you don't know a thing about their products. But you do not ever put down the competitive product. You simply don't know anything about it. A great deal of how you present yourself, when you leave the school, you're still just another person looking for a job. And while Joe Blasco is a good friend of mine and a wonderful, wonderful, talented man, he cannot guarantee you a terrific job out there in the profession. So that you should remember that you're not so terrific when you leave the school. You're only as good as what you've learned and what you add to what you've learned and the kind of appearance you make in the industry. Hollywood is the mecca for good-looking men and women, so that you're up against physically attractive people, and this is a very physical country we live in. So that you have to take your knowledge, but if you're a girl, don't get carried away with the funky look. If frizz is in, that doesn't mean you should frizz your hair 6 inches out to the side and wear blood red nails. Don't be too trendy. If you want to do that on Saturday night when you go to a disco, that's terrific. But when you're out in the industry, you should be somewhere between fashionable and conservative in the daytime in your job. You can let it all hang out when you go out at night. Remember that women in this business distrust other women to begin with. It's much easier for a man in the beauty industry because men are like doctors. They say to the woman, you have a broken leg and I can fix it. You can either hop out of here with a broken leg or you can let me fix it. With a woman, there's a very competitive spirit. If you're old, you think, I really resent this 19-year-old girl because she's beautiful. So she's apt to give you a hard time because you're young and pretty, and vice versa. If the lady behind the counter is an elderly lady, a young girl may think she doesn't know anything about her problems. So the woman in the beauty industry, though she's pretty and effective behind the counter, she may have a longer row to hoe. So that be sure that you do interpret yourself as an up-to-date woman. You're very current in your makeup, you're very current in your clothes, but not trendy. With the men, present as manly an impression as you can. Try not to be overly macho, because women also find it very uncomfortable being around a man that they think is going to straddle them with both feet or has always got a loose hand that's dangling somewhere. So that while you should be gentlemanly, you shouldn't try to affect an overly macho personality that's just as uncomfortable to be around. To be natural, be yourself, and above all, be knowledgeable. There should never be an answer that you don't have, there should never be a question that you don't have the answer to, and they should be quick, they should be intelligent, and you move on to the next thing. Don't get into too much personal conversation. Just always keep going back to what you know best, the beauty business, which, by the way, now is the third largest business in the world after oil and steel. So that it's the biggest, most growing profession and one of the best you can be involved in. So that you should have a lot of fun, you should be natural, but above all you should be knowledgeable, and you should enjoy every single day in the industry. Always learn from others, always try to improve yourself, and always be professional and authoritative.